start though with some interesting piece of music to go with it. And then likes the smooth less of all. The Mamila Quarter, which is
פתאום קם אדם בבוקר, הוא מרגיש כי הוא עם, הוא מתחיל ללכת, ולכל המפגש בדרכו קוראו שלום. פתאום קם אדם בבוקר, הוא מרגיש כי הוא עם, הוא מתחיל ללכת, ולכל המפגש בדרכו קוראו שלום.
okay. So now a little bit of word of explanation before I go on. If you enjoyed that and you did not enjoy watching it on the small screen or however you're watching at home or online, we're trying to set up an account, a little fund to get a decent screen here and get some professional equipment set up. If everybody who's participating in the services, either here or online, would give us a $100 check, we can use that towards getting equipment that we can use to enhance the service. We found to bring individuals, helps us with the service, and gives us on, it gives a little liveliness. I'm not a choir and I'm not a musician. I'm very able to keep on key myself. This way we have good musicians coming in and joining us. So if you can please, those donations, we're gearing up. We want to get things going again, moving out of the pandemic situation and moving forward. So I started to say, I pulled this on for you I'm going to, I had to share the screen. I'm going to go to something else now. Get this out of the way. And that's right. This is gone out of the way. This is shrunk down. I'm going to open this. Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to get my theme up for you. This one. Second. Oh, there we go. Okay. There we are. Here we go. So this is what you saw that flash mob get up and dance. And if you're not familiar with it, it is Piton Hamadam Baboker Margish Kilav is or also called Shir Baboker Baboker, Boker meaning morning. Song of Morning Morning. It is from a poet Amir Gilboa, who grew up in Ukraine, came to Israel as a young man, and in 1950, reflecting on the new independence wrote a book of poems. This is one that was then turned into a very popular Israeli song. So I just highlight the opening lines for you in the yellow. Suddenly, a man, an individual, wakes up in the morning. Suddenly he feels that he's now a people. Not just being a lonely individual, not just all people.
Well,
But suddenly begins to move. To everyone that he sees, Shalom. Hey, how you doing? I am new. I am come back. Right? And it is this rebirth of the Jewish people. And it wraps up with he feels like he sees the spring has returned. The tree is turning green since the last fall's loss of leaves, right? 2,000 years of exile. What we had called the Sharpat Hagalut, the shame, indignation of exile, had been removed. Now, this thing, the Sharpat Hagalut Jews, over the course of the years, absorbed in themselves the idea that their state of exile was what they deserved, and that when the Muslims and the Christians sat on them, it was as a consequence, as just now, of what we had done in failing in our obligations and expectations. Now with rebirth of Israel, that shame has been taken away. So how does that? What makes it possible? So we'll go ahead. Some thoughts. Rebirth of an ancient people. How do we get to be reborn as a people? How is it possible? There's lots of screens. A little bit better, those of you who are here. So I start out with Mendelssohn, and the gates of Europe are open, the voting is open, the ghettos, they have the rights of the Jews as citizens, very wonderful. End of the 18th century, the Americans included the Constitution, the religion laws, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And then those gates swing shut. No one talking about how bad it is to be shut in the 20th century. But we see these gates swinging shut. The gates of the promise of being part of European or part of Muslim world begins to swing shut. And examples. In Russia, the Jews were the enemies of the Tsar, the end of the 19th century, right? There was a liberalization. Russia had absorbed a lot of Jews, didn't know what to do with them, tried to build them up, draft them over there, a lot of Jewish economy, they were dying, didn't work. Eventually, as they freed the slaves, the serfs, they expanded rights to Jews as well. But in 1881, there was the assassination of Tsar Alexander II by a group of radicals, one of the six was a Jewish fellow, which did not help us any. And it resulted in a series of government organized pogroms. There are 200 pogroms in 1881 alone. 200 pogroms. Yeah.
They used to say, Beijing das Pasirasi, kill the Jew, save Mother Russia.
Okay, so May laws, they invoked May laws. They revoked the Jews' civil rights that they just got. Jews are expelled from towns and villages and were sent back to what they call the Pale of Settlement. here and not anywhere beyond. Right? Jewish college students were limited to 10% in most colleges. Any more Jews than that? No. Jews were taking good spaces along with good Russians. And this is when Constantine Pobodonets, Pobedonotstev, Pobedonotstev. Okay, I'm trying to get the name correct. Who was the head of the church, the governing body of the Russian Orthodox Church, was the major advisor to the Tsars. He encapsulated the aim of Tsar Alexander III's government, but he expressed hope that 1/3 of Jews will convert, 1/3 will die, and 1/3 will flee the country. Remember that now, at this point, the bulk of virtually was inside Russia. The largest single country was Poland, Ukraine. Well, the largest single country, Lithuania.
What year are we in?
1881. 1881. So we go to a country like France. France had set up the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin said, we are French citizens. The French said, you are French. That the laïcité, they're all citizens of France. We put aside our religion, we put aside the ethnic differences to be citizens of France, except we didn't work. 1881 was also the time of 1870, the Franco-Prussian War. The French were badly beaten. They need a scapegoat. Why were they beaten? Because Lafayette writers talk about that when it gets. Well, how about intellectuals? Intellectuals should know better. Intellectuals should know better. Look at England. Somebody as great as T.S. Eliot, who belonged to the College of Literature. I think T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, beautiful poem. There's other poems.
Yeah.
A poet, a magnificent thinker. In 1933, he's at the University of Virginia. He gives a lecture as a guest. He says, reasons for race and religion combining to make any large number of free-thinking Jews undesirable. Intellectual position. Jews are free thinkers, right? So Jews are stuck in the past, therefore they think they're part of the civilization. Jews are radicals, Marxists, they cannot be part. Jews are capitalists, they cannot be part. Jews are free thinkers, don't believe in anything about whatever position. And one of his great poems, John, he writes, my house is a decayed house. It's English civilization now. And the Jew squats on the windowsill. He writes the Jew, I think, with a small J. The owner spawned in some effeminate, like look up Staminate. Remember, this stuff we learned as much. Staminate is a bar, right? A flat, it's a floozy place. That's where you're born in. Blister of Antwerp, blistered in Brussels patch. Lovely, lovely, great poet. And this is a guy who likes Jews, by the way. You know, he wanted, there he is, T.S. Eliot. He regretted what he wrote after the Holocaust. It was too late. And he wanted nothing better than to be friends with Groucho Marx. He actually pursued Groucho Marx these days. Okay, so in the US, we have a great poet, Ezra Pound. And before he betrayed us in World War II, his anti-Semitism appeared in 1910. He wrote in a book, in an essay, the Jew alone can retain his detestable qualities despite climatic conditions. No matter where you put the Jew, he's detestable. Great poet, right? It was removed from his editions, later editions, right? Cleaned up. That's long before he betrayed him, right? And those is removing stuff that, and we don't want people to it's unpleasant. We don't want to knock down too much our hearings. Okay, it continues to our day. Google had appointed a fellow, Kamal professor, PhD in science, technology, Georgia Tech, engineering, MS and PS from UC Berkeley, and he's no redneck. And I'm sure that all his friends, his best friends, are Jewish. And so in 2007, there wasn't any war going on in 2007. He said, Jews have an insatiable appetite for war. This is the man who's in charge of diversity training for Google, that they canned him from it. He didn't can him, they just moved into a different position, going back to technology. Somebody else said something in one of the big high-tech companies, women are nothing as bad as this. He was fired immediately. Kamal was not fired. He moved over. Okay, that's intellectuals. Muslim world, right? Here's a point as well. All anti-Semitism in the Christian European world comes out of that in North America, South America. Muslim world, Jews are always accepted, tolerated, lived nicely, beautifully. And in many ways, Muslim was better, but no great place either. As we enter the modern period, because you have a secularizing trend. Turkey, the general Kemal Atatürk overthrows the Ottoman Sultan. In Iran, the father of the Shah founds the Pahlavi dynasty, also a general, removing the old regime, brings in modern European secularism, both in Turkey and in Iran. We know what happened in Iran. You have a religious reaction, strong, powerful religious reaction to get today. Turkey is going through that reaction the last 20 years. Erdogan and his party is not a Khomeini, but he's a pretty much hard line associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. In Turkey?
Yeah.
No, women in Turkey are better off than elsewhere. I watch Turkish movies. They're better. Not Iran. Not Iran. No. In Turkey, no. I mean, I'm sure Istanbul is a different country from this. Let's put it that way.
But his wife has a.
Because he was elected as a representative of the religious party. Right. So it is when you go secular, right, or the Arab nationalist movements like Nasser, as these movements don't achieve the glory that they promise, there's going to be where is the answer. So 1928, for example, in Egypt, well, still under the king, before Nasser, northeast of Egypt, 1928, and a Muslim educator, Hassan al-Banna, he worshipped Adolf Hitler. 1928, Hitler is just writing this, Mein Kampf comes out. Well, he had Hitler's autobiography and his Mein Kampf, and he translated it into Arabic and called the title My Jihad. Jihad meaning Mein Kampf. In Arabic, jihad is a struggle, a war. His successor was a rich intellectual, no pushover, educated in the United States. Many of these people had experience in the United States. Did not like what they saw in American liberal society. They thought that it was going downhill. So it's a Sayyid Qutb. And he was a strong anti-Semite. In 1950, his major book, Struggle Against the Jews, and his central part of Islamist anti-Semitism. From him, he went directly to Hamas. We go directly to Hamas, which is the Muslim Brotherhood branch in Gaza. Qatar, which is Muslim Brotherhood. Morsi of Egypt, which the United States mistakenly put in not knowing that he was Muslim, but and Morsi is American trained. Okay, and let's say Erdogan, he's a softer version. Qatar also so there is Sayyid Qutb. He's behind bars because he was involved in trying to overthrow Nasser. Nasser was not an Islamist. And Sadat was killed by Muslim Brotherhood followers also. But he was put to death, arguments. But his influence spread throughout the Muslim world. His influence. So we're not good here, and it's not good there. So this is the final stuff facing Jews as the age of enlightenment and the old-fashioned liberalism ideas of the age of reason, the age of liberation, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, those ideas faded. So, as I said last week, so we had to revise the recognition of things that we have to go back to our sources. Well, language is one, so the revival of Yiddish, creation of literature, the literary language, and then after that, Hebrew, or with the parallel side by side, Hebrew alongside, and all of those developments. So, what are the directions? Jews realizing all these centuries we lived as a people long before there were Germans, French, and Brits. Finally, goes back to the Israeli. The Israeli is the Jew. He's converted, but he's still seen as the Jew. And some parliamentary figure makes fun of the Jews, and he has a line: when your ancestors were chasing pigs in the bogs, mine was in the the temple in Jerusalem, creating the religion, something like that. We were there before anybody else had a sense of nation. We had a sense. Now we're going to recover. Well, so what are possible responses? One way is radical overthrow. For some, forget being Jewish, forget being Christian, forget being French, forget being Russian. The only way to solve our problem is to destroy the entire system. Right? Like, not just men, right? The nihilists, the anarchists, in Russia was the Narodная Volia, the radical revolutionists before the common Marxists, and Jews took part in it. Right? The all property is theft, the very existence of property, the very existence of a society and structure is all corrupt, criminal, and ways to blow it all up, would eventually evolve into the communism of Lenin, right? At the beginning of the 20th century, for example. Lenin's key allies, Trotsky, Kamenev, Zinoviev, Jews, all purged by Stalin. Okay. So, Sverdlov, a lot of it. Everybody's as family was somewhere in the hierarchy. There was not others. No. So the other way was to say, no, we're not going to blow up the whole world. We're not going to blow up the whole society. But we have obvious national interests, but we're not going to go, yeah, we're here, we're there. Everywhere where we are, we're going to create a national entity. So you have like the General Jewish Labor Book in Russian Poland, 1897. We would unite all the Jewish workers in the Russian Empire into a unified socialist party. We'd be part of the socialist movement, democratic movement, as Jews. And we would guarantee for ourselves religious and legal minority status under this new Russia. So we could take care of our specific interests and needs. Right? And it was very, of all the Jewish political parties, give them credit, they were the first to promote gender equality, and women are 1/3 of all the members. That was a big deal for this time. So they were active on the fight against anti-Semitism, fought for Jewish civil and cultural rights, rejected assimilation, we are Jews. They did not want to be part of the Jewish middle class, the bourgeoisie, the upper class, the capitalists, rejected cooperation with religious Jewish groups. They were anti-religious, or Zionists, because that would be just reverting to something that was impossible, or conservative groups. The anthem of the Bund, the Shmur, written by S. Ansky, right, the same guy who wrote the Dibble, has nothing about Jewish suffering. We're going to revolutionary socialism as Jews.
What was the name of that book?
The Dibble. It's the Dibble. You know the play? The story of the Dibble. In college, you have to give it a Dibble. Go watch the movie. It's still available. See it. Okay. So they felt there would be no contradiction between Jews as a nation within our place in the larger society and being socialist. We don't need the land of Israel. We don't need Hebrew because we are Yiddish. Speaking right. So this Jews now, this idea of Jews as a recognized minority, national entity, but scattered, is recognized by the League of Nations and is part of the Treaty of Versailles that ends World War I. Right? Jews, like other ethnic minorities, would be guaranteed minority rights. This would be primarily in Eastern and Southeastern Europe. There are minority treaties, special minority treaties at Versailles, 1919. And yeah.
So Jews were recognized as a group of people, not necessarily as a religion.
Not as a but not as a nationality. Right? It gains international recognition. Not in one place, wherever they were, they would be part of this Jewish nationality and have guaranteed minority rights. I mean, this was part of the problem. You took apart the Ottoman Empire, you took apart the Austrian Empire, you have all these little ethnic, you created new states, but inside these new states, there are little pockets. And so, for example, the Czechoslovakia as a German ethnic entity, with any protection, that's one of the things that needs to be World War II, exclusive, right? Inside Poland, you have the Jewish minority. That minority now must have protection. Therefore, there are political parties by ethnic grouping. The Jews have a Jewish political party inside the Polish party, right? Now, in the new Soviet Union, also there, Jews would be granted a national identity, Yevreyi. Jenny, I thought did you have on your passport, you said Yevreyi?
Every parent had a passport, and then every passport was the nationality for Jews, it was Ukraine, for Russia, it was Russia,
That's-
Ukraine.
And it was a recognized nationality. I think it was the 16th largest, yeah.
Nationality or a, because when I hear nationality, it means a country. So what is it?
Yeah,
What is
so
it?
so it's a nationality without a country. Yes, yes.
Nationality within the.
Within, yeah, but
So
separate from,
there's no Russian there.
no, there is Russian.
There is not.
There is Russian. Russian is the nation and the nationality. Jews are, but that's not just Jews, that's also Kalmuks and Tatars and all the others also have these rights.
It was like this all over the.
So primarily East Europe. No, primarily East Europe. That's because where Jews are living in large numbers. The French and the Americans look at Jews as English. Right.
Passport says you're a Russian national.
No, it says you're a Jewish national.
My grandfather.
You are a Russian citizen, but a Jewish national.
Soviet citizen.
Soviet citizen.
Nationality is.
That's it, yeah.
So my grandfather's passport, there is no national Jewish.
Where was he?
But he was born in Algeria.
Algeria. So the French had a different setup. Right, it was under the French at that time. So it was a Frenchman. Because the French recognized no ethnicity.
But there was no
Only
Jewish,
France.
anything on the passport.
No, it shouldn't be. It's French. It's French. You are French. There's nothing else. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
idea of country is a relatively modern notion. In the part of like the kingdom of.
Right. So that's one of the problems that the treaty was signed, because they're creating nations out of non-existent nations. Whereas the English had centuries to develop the English nation, the French had centuries to develop the French nation. The Germans did not. It's one of the problems, and the Italians did not. That's why we had problems. Yeah.
I used to carry a Commonwealth passport, and it shows that you're a citizen of the Commonwealth. You're Jamaican, you're Jamaican national, a British national, but you're a member of the Commonwealth.
Right. But you would not be as a Jew in Jamaica.
No,
No, that's right. Yeah. Very important. So Jews are unique, or they're not really unique. No, it's a recognition. We have, just like Kalmuks and Tatars and Dagestan, all these people have rights. Jews are national, and then they just spread out to their national. So in the Soviet Union, also, we go down a step further. We create a Jewish oblast, right? Jewish autonomous oblast region. And the capital, Rebirth, right? And it's put, I've got a map here for you, if anybody wants to see the map. Teeny.
Next to China.
All right, and why? Multiple reasons. Here. Let's see my map. I'm gonna enlarge it here.
My God, Russia.
Here's where Jews live in Ukraine and Crimea and so on. And you go take the Trans-Siberian Railroad, get over the farthest end before you hit the Chinese border and the Manchurian border, and the Japanese are just around the corner, and that little spot, that's Azerbaijan. So why did they
There were
put it?
Jews there.
So no Jews lived there before that. They had to move them there. But why? It was like a few thousand Jews, but they gave, so the land of Israel, the British gave Palestine to the Jews, theoretically, even though there was an Arab population, they gave Jews Azerbaijan, even though there was whatever is the population of that end of Siberia. And they were populated gradually. There were only a few thousand that came in, and Yiddish became the official language. I only met one person ever who was actually from Azerbaijan, maybe, that I can think of.
But the interesting thing is that Jewish people have a land, Jewish people didn't have a land, but every other people had a land where they came from, and they were recognized as national land. But
Right.
the Jewish people didn't have a land,
So
so the next, they considered them as kind of cannibal land.
So they gave the Jews a land, Azerbaijan. it was not bad. The British wanted to give us Uganda. Uganda may have been better than Azerbaijan. The weather is better. But why? Number one is you moved the Jews far from, so it's so troublesome. Khrushchev would say, I only have troubles from Jews that always ask me questions. Right? So you move them from people, they're not nice, not covered with Russians. It's not. All right, that's number one. Number two, they would be a buffer against Japan and China because we could trust them as an outpost against the Japanese and Chinese. And it would be a competition against Zionism because Zionism would take the focus away from the Soviet Union to an outside foreign entity which could be disloyal. All right, so there are multiple thoughts. But again, the idea, we were understanding that the Jews are an ethnic entity of their own. So
what happens to them?
it's still there. They're not many left. There's still some. There's still a little settlement. Actually, they're like a few thousand.
Did they take America with the China?
Probably not.
It happened during the time when Stalin passed away, so they didn't complete it. Most of the Jews, they lived in the European part of Soviet Union, only few of them.
Yeah, it was an experiment.
When are we gonna finish?
What?
When are we gonna finish?
Sure. So when I finish, so Zionism comes in now as so we have radical revolutionists, tear everything down, burn the whole house down. One option. Number two, where we are, we're going to guarantee our national entity rights for the like. Just we don't have the land. So we assume it's ruthless cosmopolitan. It's an old accusation from the Soviets and also from the left wing, right wing, left wing, just ruthless. Anyway, we come to founder of Zionism before Zionism, founder of communism together with Marx. Founder of communism together with Marx. So we talk about Karl Marx, who's Jewish. Founder Engels was not, this was a Christian origin. Marx is grandson of Rabbi. Moses Hess knows about him. I put his picture up there for you. A great friend and collaborator of Karl Marx, editor of Rheinische Zeitung, and he is the one who introduces Friedrich Engels, who is a wealthy entrepreneur, to Marx and creates the system which builds up communism. Engels finances this whole project. But it is Moses Hess, who is named at this time, goes by the name of Moritz, the German name. Right? And he contributed towards Marx's Communist Manifesto, in particular one of the second line, which is religion is the opiate of the masses. That's from a Jewish man. Well, they have a party of the ways. There's an accusation, I don't know who brought it. He married a woman of ill repute. Others said she was a very poor woman, out of identity with the oppressed. And it is said that at some point she had an affair with Engels. That's an accusation, and that led to his breakup with Marx. That's probably his enemies invented it because other sources said she really wasn't very honest. Just poor woman about that. All right, 1861 to 1860, he's watching anti-Semitism grow in Germany. He goes back to his original Jewish name, Moses, and he's going to protest Jewish assimilation as well. He creates a book called Rome and Jerusalem. He looks at the Italians, the Risorgimento, the rebirth, resurgence of an Italian identity, and he looks at the way the Germans, the Austrians, are trying to put it down. And he comes from this Italian, looking at this Italian rebirth, and he gets the Jewish national revival. And he calls the establishment, the first one, as a political move, create a Jewish socialist commonwealth in Palestine, which would parallel the emerging national movements in Europe, and it would be the only way to respond to anti-Semitism. This in 1860. Well, we go back, and I'm just going to go into briefly this fellow, Pinsker, Leon Pinsker. He is a physician in Russia. He's very successful, very assimilated, very Russianized, and he looks at the pogroms in 1880 and he realizes it's impossible for Jews to ever be accepted. And he, as a physician, knowing psychiatry, gives it a medical diagnosis. He calls the book Auto-Emancipation. We're waiting for the other guys to liberate us. We gotta do ourselves. Don't count. Auto-emancipation. We need to liberate ourselves. And here's the kernel of the problem. The Jews comprise a distinctive element among the nations under which they dwell, and as such, can neither assimilate nor be digested by any nation. We're not here, not there. We can't assimilate, we ourselves, and we can't be digested. So, the solution, we need to solve the question, the Jewish question. The Jewish question, the Judenfrage.
What was his name?
Pinsker, young Pinsker. You understand the solution, but not so people. No equality in the nations dealing with Jews. Why? The basis of absolute from these treaties and international law may be applied, mutual respect. Only when the basis is established, when the equality of Jews with other nations becomes a fact, the Jewish problem is resolved. In other words, among the living nations of the earth, the Jews are as a nation long since then. And that's our problem, the core of our problem. We lost our independence, we fell into decay. It is not compatible with our existence as a full vital organism. And our state was crushed for us. So we continue, yeah, I just finished. So we ceased to exist as a real state. But we continue, we didn't disappear. We wouldn't submit to annihilation. So we lived on spiritually as a nation without the elements of a nation. And the world saw in this people the uncanny form of one of the dead walking among the living. The ghost-like apparition of a living corpse of the people with identity organization of land or other bonds of being no longer alive, yet walking among the living. A spectral form, right? A ghostly form, without precedence in history, unlike anything preceded or followed. We don't know what followed or before. But strangely affecting the imagination of the nations. And the fear of ghosts is something inborn. It has a certain justification in the psychic life of mankind. Why be surprised and affected by this dead but still living nation? In other words, that fear of the Jew is a psychiatric manifestation of the existence of the Jew in the presence of the non-Jew. What is he saying? It is psychosis. It is a mass psychosis. Fear of the Jewish ghost has been passed down generation after generation. It culminated in Judeophobia. Right? So, Judeophobia are the symbols of secrecies that require legitimacy, a legitimate phobia among the peoples of the earth with whom Jews had intercourse. We removed the Chinese, they didn't have problems with this. We weren't allowed. Right? Judeophobia is a variety of demonopathy, which a person has an enormous fear of demons, basically. It's not particular to particular races, common to the whole of mankind. The ghost is not disembodied like of a ghost, but partakes of flesh and blood, and must endure pain and think about a fearful mouth that imagines itself in danger. Right? He's given us a psychiatric analysis of the origins of anti-Semitism. Judeophobia is a psychic aberration. As a psychic aberration is hereditary and is a disease that is transmitted for 2,000 years. It is incurable. The only way to solve is for the Jew to restore it as a people in his own.
Until the beginning of the 1800s, people who moved to another country were never considered like citizens of that country. Were considered living with them, but kind of foreign, even second, third, and fourth generation. So it's a different concept than today. So
that's why the French Revolution was so significant, because the French Revolution said you're a citizen of a nation. All your ethnic identities are put aside, all your religious divisions are put aside because of the nation, the United States. All your ethnic identities, because unfortunately race was the problem, you know, but otherwise, but all the others are subsumed under this one identity. And that's why there was a civil war, because there was an internal contradiction in society that had to be resolved. It wasn't very resolved. But it failed. This idea was failing. This is a great noble idea of the French Enlightenment, the American, the English Enlightenment. And one of the problems we have today is we are afraid that that is failing. It's like this liberal ideal where we have a group, we put aside our individual differences, we work together, whatever it is, very much in threat in many ways around the world. So, in such a situation, the Jews, look at France, look at Europe today, Jews are feeling very threatened. In the United States today, I ask my friends, I hear it, feeling threatened. Feeling threatened. Okay. Just quickly before I go on, so there was a response to the first move to Mariana, Jews moved to Israel, up in numbers 81, both from Europe and also from Yemen and other places, trying to establish settlement. And then we have this cultural Zionism as well, where we would restore, well, not looking at a political thing, but enough Jews residing in the land of Israel to create a new Jewish civilization that would then serve as a unifying force for all Jews worldwide. That's Ahad Ha'am, Ashkenaz. So I'm going to stop at this point. Next week, we're going to go to the strange case of Theodore Herzl, who is a very strange bird character in many, many ways, and the least likely person one would think of to create a Jewish state. He was almost not Jewish. He was Jewish by accident of birth. He was Jewish by accident of birth. And so we'll talk about that. We'll discover why did he, what was it that he was able to do that no one else could do before?
Maybe that it has to do with what they were saying, the concept that although you live in a country, you still can control it. Consider.
And none of his fellow Jews wanted to believe it.
So you will go into the practice of that?
Yeah,
I think simply goes that their own terms is very tribal. And you're creating artificial boundaries that we call country. But we're in this area, we are just innately tribal. And once you belong to a tribe, you're okay. When you're not, it's when you start having to have these
so
because even within the United States, let's just say for the world here, when you have Jews against blacks against Jews, Jews against blacks against who have been just so oppressed in this country and turn it around on Pacific Islanders or someone like that. It just tells me that we're just so tribal. How do we get out of this? Is it complex?
It's very painful. It is. The idea is you need to focus back on a society that is based on common adherence to common law and ideal. And if you can't have it, then we're at each other's throats.
I don't appreciate it, but I'm doing it.
That's right. So the United States is exactly, it's an artificial entity of different colonies that have different personalities, with different origins, different nationalities, and have to put aside in order to survive.
We don't. We never do.
We manage.
Show me an instance where we
manage.
decide race in this country.
We manage things.
We don't.
Not put aside.
Tell the people who are suffering under it. Those who grew up through Jim Crow, those who are privileged, they never manage.
So now, if we can't get back to that and the idea of a national entity, and we focus on the individual tribals, we're lost. And that's a big problem. That's a big problem.
But why are people so afraid of Jews when we are so I don't understand.
We're very powerful. There's an obsession with Jews. There's an obsession with Jews. Jews are visible. You go through and you interview people and say, how many Jews are in the world? Must be several hundred million. It's so powerful. Why? How many people in Israel must be several hundred million? It's so powerful. We're very prominent. We're very. You go to the right wing, who are the intellectuals?
That's why we're
Jews. You go to the left wing, who are the intellectuals? You go to the scientists, who are there. Who go to the economics, who are there. So when you have a group that traditionally stands out, you're targeted.
What about the
It's not a
numbers? What about the numbers?
Chinese in exile. The Chinese in the diaspora also where they settle outside of China became very successful and prosperous, and became targets of attack by the native peoples.
Yeah, but there are many in China.
No, they had not out in the exile. Chinese, what they call the Chinese diaspora, parallel to the Jews. They're out in Southeast Asia and Indonesia and those areas. So Chinese settled, very successful, and were attacked. Yeah, that's why you have Singapore, which is a Chinese entity in the middle of Malaysia, as a separate, something similar, and the only way to survive was to be an separate entity. Singapore. Yeah. Yeah, well, let's go ahead. I think let's go ahead and engage. We're gonna, let's go ahead and engage everybody. Okay, good job. Good job.
We have people on machine.
What do we have?
A lot of people on machine.